Hi, my name's Evan. I gave my life to Christ 11 years ago. Uh, Things are going pretty good now, but it hasn't always been that way. My life before Christ was full of all kinds of pain and suffering. Um, it started when I was about 13, 12 or 13, and all my life I've wanted to fit in. And it just so happened that my next door neighbor, he, in my opinion, fitted in, and he was, he was the cool guy, and I wanted to be like him. He was a leader. Had a strong personality, and all he talked about was getting high, so I had to try it. It started with just smoking some weed, but things went downhill real quick. I remember telling my friends that, oh, I'm not going to do anything else. I would never try coke. I would never try, acid or anything like that. But eventually, I ended up smoking crack. My favorite drug was pills. I loved Oxycontins. And next thing I know, I was stealing and hurting anybody and everybody I could to get high. And it just took me down a horrible path. I would do anything and everything to get a hold of some pills, and I just had to get high every day. As soon as I woke up, I had to get high. And I destroyed my life, and my home life, my parents. It was just horrible. The defining moment when I decided to give my life to Christ, I was about 20 years old. My buddy's sister invited us to go to church, and I had a background in church. My parents raised me in church, and so I knew God and His voice, and I always felt when I was doing all the drugs and the crime and all the trouble I got into, I never really felt like it was me, but I was trying to be somebody whom I thought was cool, or try to be somebody that was fulfilled. And when I went to church that day with my friend, and the music started playing, right then and there, God met with me. I knew it was time to stop. I felt horrible for what I had been doing to my family especially. And I made a decision that day that this is going to stop. And that's when it did. When I gave my life to Christ, I had to make a lot of changes, but it wasn't easy. It helped because my mom and my dad, they were still married, luckily, and I had a home to live in that didn't have the drugs and the alcohol. They weren't the influence that got me into all that. So I ran to them because they were very excited that I gave my life to Christ. But the phone calls from the people that I would sell pills to, or that I would help find pills or weed or whatever for, didn't stop. That was really hard to tell them, dude, I gave my life to Christ. I'm a different person now. But I did. They were shocked, and sooner or later the rumor got out, and people got to the point and they realized I was serious. I remember people walking up to me later on, and I heard you gave your life to Christ, man. So they all found out eventually. One thing that sticks out to me the most, actually two things, now that I think about it. I remember I had a drug dealer that I still owed money to. I still owed him $180, and that was one thing I didn't want on my back. So I decided to pawn my PlayStation 2 and come up with the rest of that money as quick as I could. And I did it as quick as I could, and I called him up, like, hey dude, we need to meet. I gave my life to Christ, I want to pay you your money back. And he was blown away, didn't know what to say, didn't know whether or not to punch me or what, because I had owed him money for like a year, but I wanted to get it off my chest. And that was hard to do. I remember sitting in a DUI class I had to take to help get my license back, reading a Jesus book during our break, feeling so out of place because I wasn't used to doing those things. Instead of, normally I would go out and smoke a cigarette or a joint or ask somebody for some pills or something on a break at some stupid meeting, And it was so hard to adjust those things. If I wouldn't have ran to my family and to a church that could teach me and help introduce me to the Spirit of God, then I would have never made it. My life now, compared to how it used to be, is a night and day difference. I've talked about chasing after all those fulfillments through drugs and alcohol and all these different ways that I thought I could get there. And now, God has showed me His fulfillment. I started out just running into His arms, and next thing I know, I'm here. I have a youth ministry. I have teenagers that are learning how to serve Jesus Christ, who are getting saved from generational curses of drug addiction from their parents, and I even get to minister to the kids of people I used to get high with. God has completely changed my life, and I would have never thought that His journey would be way more fulfilling than my idea of the journey I thought I was supposed to travel down. And it's way better than I could ever imagine. One thing a lot of people think about living a Christian life and about Christians is they think that you're going to be perfect. And since you're a Christian and you're talking about the Bible, you obviously don't have any problem. But there's still tons of problems that you have in your life. God's always digging up stuff that you need to deal with that you never ever realized that you had deep in your dark, nasty heart. You had that I have, that we all have. The Bible says we have, and so I'm far from perfect. And I hope that nobody holds back from giving their life to Jesus Christ because they have problems in their life. You leave those problems there, run into His arms, He takes care of the rest. One piece of advice that I wish I would have had 11 years ago is the fulfillment that God brings you and living the life of Jesus Christ brings you, and the pain and suffering also that comes along with it is way better than a life with drugs. I thought I could get fulfillment in that. I thought that that's what I needed. And that pain and suffering hurt everybody. But with Jesus Christ, yeah, you might have pain and suffering because the Bible says we're going to suffer just like Christ suffered. And you got to stand up for what's right and for Him when nobody else wants to. If I was to stay on that path that I was traveling on, that path of drugs and crime, destruction, I think I'd probably be dead. I believe that God saved me from heroin overdose, to be honest with you. Heroin started to come into Marion back in 2004, and I remember a few of my friends talking about it when we were trying to get some oxys, but it never really came my way besides an ecstasy or whatever, but I never really shot up or snorted just a line of heroin. And I believe with all my heart, if I would have went there, it would have been over. I've watched it take so many lives, and I believe that God spared me, hopefully knowing that one day I can maybe help save other lives. My name's Evan, and I choose Christ. you.